Hello everyone and welcome to our annual Data Champions Online USA event. My name's Catherine and I'm one of the producers here at Crinium, and it is my enormous pleasure to be hosting this event all week. Welcome back to those of you who tuned in last year, and hello to those of you tuning in for the first time this year. Now, before we get stuck into some fantastic content today, just a quick message on housekeeping. Across the entire event, you'll have the chance to submit your questions live to our speakers, but please do be sure to get these in nice and early so we have the chance to answer them live on air. You'll see where to do this on your screen in the Q&A module. Now, should you experience any technical issues at any point, firstly, refresh your browser and log back into the system. If that hasn't done the trick, pop a message over to us on the Q&A module and my team will do their best to help you out. You'll also notice there's a resource center on your screen full of fantastic content, especially our global events calendar. Be sure to download all of that and dive in later on. Now, one of the best parts about my job is standing up at a lectern and shouting out to all of you and your smiley faces my opening remarks, but we can't do that at the moment. So what I'd love for you to do is grab your phone and take a selfie of you engaging in this event. Pop it onto LinkedIn using the hashtag #DataChampionsOnline. This is a great way for you to build your network full of data champions like yourself. And you'll also get the chance to be submitted into a draw to win a pair of AirPods. So it's definitely worth doing. Now, without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to the first two speakers of today. Marius Mascovici, who's the CEO of Metric Insights, will be joined by Ken Elliott, who's the VP of Enterprise Analytics and Data Management from Waste Management. They're going to be walking us through how they're making sense of the noise by breaking down barriers to achieve and provide meaningful business intelligence. So, without further ado, over to you guys.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Let's see, go to the first slide. So what we're going to cover today is, first we're going to just sort of go over the case for a business intelligence portal. We're going to talk all about BI portals today, kind of what motivates it. Then Ken is going to speak a little bit about his journey deploying a business intelligence portal at Waste Management, and then I'm going to provide you a demo of Metric Insights, which is that's what we do with our technology. So with that, let's jump in. So I'm going to start with maybe a statement that might seem a little controversial. So your business intelligence environment is a mess. Now, that sounds crazy, right? I don't know you. I've never seen your environment. So, how is it that I can say that? Well, take a little journey with me, virtual journey, if you like kind of a thought experiment here. As we are all sitting here and you're listening to me, there's probably an analyst in your organization that is building some dashboard. And they have, they're diligent, they've gone through, they've got requirements from the business, they figured out what needs to be done. And, because they're a diligent analyst, he or she, before they go and build a new dashboard, they'll go and look at your BI catalog and see, what's in that BI tool, what are the dashboards that already exist, is there something that's similar to what I'm about to create that might do the trick? And sure enough, there's maybe something out there. Perhaps they're building a sales dashboard. There's another sales dashboard. It's about 70, 80% of what they need. But they'd have to change some terms, maybe change a little bit of the definitions, maybe add and extend what's there. And now at that point, kind of a question arises. What do they do? So you look and see. Okay, there's 12 people that are consuming this. So do they choice one, do they go and sort of schedule a meeting with these 12 people, try to find a time that they can all get together and discuss the dashboard and the proposed changes that they would need to make for this other use case and making sure that everything is compatible? Or do they go File, Save As, duplicate that dashboard, and then go merrily along with that duplicate, building out whatever it is that they need? Well, you and I both know that 99 times out of 100, File, Save As will win over call a meeting with 12 people. And therein lies the rub, right? As you take that isolated event and you multiply it out by all the analysts in your organization, and you play it forward for the months in which your business intelligence infrastructure has been in place, then you can see that no matter what your BI tool is, over time, there's only one thing that can happen, and that is that that BI tool environment becomes a mess. But essentially, it's actually even worse than that, because it's not just that particular BI tool that has this problem, but to the typical end user that's consuming the information, they have to look across all the different assets that you have in your enterprise across all the different tools. So not only does that user need to be able to say, okay, which of these two sales dashboards actually has the right information, which is obsolete and which is current, and how do I make sense of that? But they need to first of all know, which BI tool do I use? Do I go into Tableau, MicroStrategy, or or is that in the SaaS product itself? I know it's coming from Salesforce, but is it in Salesforce, or is it in the warehouse, and I'm then consuming the report from Salesforce? So because of the fact that in large enterprises, the BI infrastructure sort of grows almost organically over time, with lots of different technologies being added on, you just invariably create an environment where there's lots of silos, and to the typical business user, it's almost overwhelming to try to figure out where to go to find the information. The other problem is that typically users, maybe they have 1 or 2 minutes to be able to spend time on analytics. And so with this environment, with this so many different potential BI tools, and there's so many reports within BI tools, it just generates, by its nature, an overwhelmed situation where it's impossible for users to figure out, what do I look at today with my very scarce few minutes of time that I have to look at analytics. And that overwhelm then essentially degrades the trust that's there in the business intelligence product. So if I have multiple versions of dashboards that are kind of almost the same, but not exactly, maybe they even show slightly different information because the business definitions are a little bit different in them, that creates an environment where I just don't know, is the thing I'm looking at, can I trust this information? Do I know for sure that this is going to be consistent with other things that I'm looking at? And as a result, because of my lack of trust in it, that will drive a lower level of usage, right? So if I'm not sure if I can trust the particular BI analytic that I'm looking at, I'm likely not to use the system very much. And then if I, as a business user, am not using the system, then that means that as a BI team, you're generating low ROI for the tools that you've invested in, right? So most of you, if you're in large organizations, you certainly spend millions of dollars on your BI stack, on your BI infrastructure. And typically, if you look at how people are consuming that, there's a fairly low consumption model. And so the ROI for those tools is really difficult to prove and justify going forward. So that's sort of the case for why a business intelligence portal is important. Now let's talk about how a business intelligence portal actually cleans up this mess. So first of all, a BI portal catalogs everything in a single place. So all of your information assets, whether they are things that are of your SaaS products, things of your existing BI tools, your multiple BI tools, PDFs, everything that you have kind of in a single place, so the user does not have to wonder, where do I go to find this information? Second, a BI portal allows you to distribute content to your users. So it's not really enough to just create a list of links for people where they could just go in and say, let me find the content. Because there's just so much content out there, then when I find something that's useful, when it's recommended to me, I want to be able to just have that content come to me. So as a busy end user, I would be able to say, send this to me every day or once a week and combine it with all my other content that's of interest to me. And that way I can automatically look at it without having to go somewhere to find it because I'm very busy. The third major value proposition from a BI portal is that we can uncover critical changes. So again, thinking about the fact that there are maybe dozens of dashboards that might be available to me, if not more. If I only have a few minutes, which of those dashboards am I going to look at today? And then if I open a dashboard, how am I going to, in a very short period of time, as a non-analyst, how am I going to find what it is that's changed, what's changed in that data? So a BI portal needs to be able to analyze the underlying data behind a visualization, and then push that out to a user when there's a critical change, when there's something that's underlying has changed in a way that requires that user's attention. And finally, it's important to monitor the usage around your existing BI stack. So BI Portal allows you to have this sort of X-ray vision into how users are actually utilizing the BI content that's out there, and make sure that you are justifying the investment that's being made, so that you're investing your scarce BI team resources in those areas where you're actually generating the most value, and that you're sure that that you're allocating the licensing around the BI tools in ways that where people are actually taking advantage of the very expensive resources available to them. So, with that, let me turn it over to Ken, who will share with you a little bit about his journey of adopting the BI portal at Waste Management.
Thanks, Marius. Yes, actually, everything that you just listed was certainly true for us at Waste Management as well. So very familiar issues in what you just laid out. You know, before I get started, I thought I would just share a couple of statistics around waste management, because you think, okay, waste management, trash company, they come pick up my trash on Thursdays. But just a little bit more about our company. You might not know, we own all of our own trucks. So we own 18,000 plus trucks. We manage all of those trucks. So we have smart trucks that are sending IoT information, location information, sensor information off those trucks. We manage 14,000 trucks or routes that those trucks are actually on. So we actually do the routing and all the logistics around those trucks. We have our own drivers, so we have driver productivity, we have all of our technicians, so we have predictive maintenance, supply chain issues. We manage our landfills and transfer stations, so there's a lot of statistics and analytics that comes off our landfills. Are we being environmentally conscious in how we manage those landfills? What is our best practices in that area? We actually have call centers, so we have customer service agents handling calls from our customers, as well as our partners. Our competitors use our own landfills, so there's lots of calls and conversations we have around there. So we analyze call center analysis and predictions as well. Of course, we have customers in residential, commercial, all lines of business. So we're really trying to better understand our customers and our customers' changing needs. Especially during this crisis, there's been a dramatic shift in our economy. And so how do we reroute much more rapidly? How do we adjust to our customers' changing needs in this decline, as well as now, hopefully soon, coming back out of this crisis? Our need for information has never been greater. So we've got business intelligence analytics all across our company as a waste management company, so just a few things there. It was probably just a few months ago, we're broken up into 17 areas across North America. And our area vice presidents came and said, we have too many reports. We're getting too many reports from corporate. It's really difficult for us to produce any insight internally within the areas. And the organization came around to the recognition of everything that Marius just shared with us, which is we have too many. Folks are producing reports in multiple tools. So we have Power BI, we have Spotfire, we have Tableau, a preponderance of Excel files, no continuity or consistency in how those are being produced, nor continuity and consistency in how they're being distributed. So a big problem that we ran across was all these teams that are out there producing reports across the organization were creating their own distribution lists and emailing things out to the executive teams and to our area vice presidents and to our route planners and managers. And there was really no control of who's getting what and how these distribution lists are being managed. And they were just getting a deluge of reports that they just stopped looking at. And I think, you know, to Marius's point earlier, there was just too much, and then therefore the value became lower, and then there was less attention to that. So when we, from the digital organization, I'm part of the digital organization, stepped in to try to help solve this problem for the company, we're really recognizing that, look, this is a technology problem, but it's much more important because it has serious strategic implications. So our inability to plan effectively, our inability to find information, misalignment across the organization because metrics were different, certainly suboptimal decisions because of the effort that it takes to get to them, and maybe one group's decisions coming up different than another, and they're not taking advantage of each other's knowledge. ambiguity in how decisions are being made, and ultimately lack of our ability to predict our business. All around all of the issues that we've just talked about. So we went on a quest to try to figure out how to solve this problem. And so a few things that were important to us. One of them was, how do we get all the reports into one place, even though we have the business groups and different teams using different tools like Power BI, which they have a portal, and Spotfire has a portal, and Tableau has a portal, and then Excel is just in multiple SharePoint sites. So we didn't have a lack of portals. Matter of fact, we had too many portals, but we needed a single place to be the enterprise reporting portal for the company that could pull in information from these multiple tools. And that's one of the things that Metric Insight was able to provide to us. And that was a big first step, is just have a single place to direct everybody. Because of that, now we can search across all of these in one location and find redundancy to say, hey, this fuel consumption report has already been produced. So that means I don't have to reproduce it. So that's creating much more efficiencies, because it's easier now to find the reports that are out there. And then our ability to collaborate on core metrics. I think one of the metrics capability that we've enabled through Metric Insight, looking at our KPIs once and for all in one location, being able to track those, set alerts according to those, comment on those, kind of really collaborate around the key intelligence in the company. That ability to collaborate around insights was tremendously valuable to us, because again, if emails are being sent from some team to another team, there's a lack of generalized collaboration and knowledge sharing. I personally think that one of the big capabilities that's delivered through Metric Insight is this distribution. They'll call it, I don't know, Maurice, if you're planning to show it, but they're calling it bursts. And so my ability in one tool to say, I'm going to set up a distribution of this report out to this distribution list, like senior leadership team, for example. Now I can set up the schedule in one location across multiple BI platforms, have a single place that I now know where every report is going. It's a globally defined distribution list, not something on somebody's SharePoint, or sorry, somebody's own laptop out of Outlook. And now I can track what everybody's getting, and they can opt in and opt out. So the end user can opt in and opt out. So centrally managing distribution of reports and being able to control that and monitor that is a huge, huge win. Probably one of the bigger value propositions in what we've been able to do. And then this concept of, now that I've got all this reporting in one location, being able to differentiate reports by saying these reports are certified and put a gold star next to it, which means to us, it meant the data is being ETL'd automatically, so it's being loaded automatically, it's being monitored by IT, the definitions have been signed off by the business, the data steward has signed off on it, and data quality is being monitored. So for these certified reports, you can kind of just weed through the noise and just focus in on a leadership team around those reports that are certified. And our leadership team is now starting to use this portal to conduct their business reviews. So their quarterly business reviews and their weekly business reviews are being done out of this portal on certified reports, which is huge. So those kind of capabilities were really, really important to us. And this one platform was able to provide those, and we've got it up and running, and the organization is thrilled, and it's actually building a lot more momentum now, kind of reversing the trend that we talked about a moment ago, which is kind of a lack of engagement because of the propagation. Now we're getting more engagement because of the centrality. So it's really been a big boon for us, and something that we found to be very effective. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Maurice.
Thank you, Ken. So so now what we'd like to spend sort of the rest of the presentation just kind of giving you guys a quick demo, so that you kind of have a sense of what Metric Insights is as a portal, and see sort of some of the stuff in action. Just to sort of summarize what you're about to see, Metric Insights basically combines all of the different information assets you have in an enterprise, irrespective of kind of what they are, in the cloud, on-premise, et cetera. And we do three things. We organize that information so that everything is in a single place, as Ken mentioned, make a single pane of glass through which you access everything. We enrich that content by uncovering anomalies, identifying exceptions, pushing out things to users when they actually need to consume them. And then we do distribution. So the other item Ken mentioned about being able to create a single unified infrastructure to be able to push critical information to users, both on a as requested basis as well as a managed basis. And when we go through the demo, you'll kind of understand more about that. So without further ado, let's kind of dive in here, and we'll give you a kind of a sense of the application. So what you're seeing here is the catalog view in Metric Insights. So when you are kind of coming in to Metric Insights and you want to see all the different objects that are there, every single visualization that's available to you is represented as a tile that you see, kind of that little square, with the ability to kind of filter the content. And then there's an organizational framework on the left where you've got favorites, you've got folders that contain content that's collected across from different places, and you've got categories. And this particular view you're seeing here is an admin view. There's a little gear there that I could go in to edit any piece of content, and there's also, you can see some of those tiles have that little a green check mark, the certification mark that Ken mentioned, and you can actually mouse over those and see who certified them and when they did. And if I were to go and, let's say, click on one of those tiles, maybe that first one with a Tableau sales analysis tile, I get a preview that shows me kind of a higher fidelity view. This is an actual snapshot of that dashboard. It's taken on a regular basis, so it's current. You know, this will tell me kind of, is this really what I'm interested in? If I am, I click further. Then I go and I can consume that content, live content within Metric Insights, or directly natively within the tool. So in this case, you're seeing the consumption model that would occur within Metric Insights, where that particular Tableau dashboard is shown inside of an iframe. And then there's the ability to kind of set bookmarks up at the top with filters. There's the ability to add expert commentary at the bottom, so an analyst can specify if there's something that's new about the dashboard, something relevant, business rules that have been applied. That's all visible there. And I can, you know, sort of with it directly here. I can click on that little star if I want to over there on the top right-hand corner to add it to my favorites if I wish to do that. So, you know, users can consume it directly in a single place. They don't really even need to think about, is this a Tableau dashboard? Is it a Spotfire? Is it Power BI? It's just click on a tile, consume it, go back. If they click on the home button, you'll go back to the home page. So, and this is what the view would be in Metric Insights, where the user's favorites were selected on the left-hand side. So now I'm seeing only those items that I've clicked on the star for, you know, that I've added to my favorites. And, you know, all this content is basically then, you know, available to me here. And you've noticed here that you might notice that there's different kinds of content. So, you know, you see these BI tools, Tableau, Power BI, ClickSense, etc. But there's also these, if you look at the second row, you can see there are some what we call metrics or KPIs. And Ken mentioned that as well, that, you know, sometimes it's really critical to provide your users with more than just a visualization. You know, visualization is great, but oftentimes, if you look at how business users are using those visualizations, they're going in to find some high-level KPIs, and they want to start with that. So you can bubble those up into the Metric Insights portal. So, for example, that Canada daily cost, where we connect either to that dashboard or to your warehouse, and we can pull in high-level KPIs. We can stoplight them. You can see some of those are red, some of those are green, so you know kind of how it's doing. And then if a user clicks on one of them, they can basically go in and look at how that KPI is trending. And Metric Insights has a number of capabilities around that. So you can see here, this is a preview for that particular KPI. And if I click again, then I'm actually seeing that KPI tracked over time. That you can do event markers, you know, when to do your own promotions and particular things that are associated with it. There can be annotations that are placed on that to indicate why a particular data point is significant, so that blue mark is an annotation, and then you can also see those little green and red triangles are alerts, and I can essentially use alerts to be able to, you know, bring people's attention to a particular metric. And alerts can either be done statistically, automatically by Metric Insights when a particular metric falls outside of normal volatility, or they can be set up by users with rules, comparing them to fixed values, prior values, you know, creating custom volatility levels. Anything from very simple to, you know, Six Sigma type of alerting is possible here. And again, the idea is when something happens, I can have subscribers for these alerts, and I will be notified automatically that as a subscriber that something's going on with this metric, and I can take a look for it. Going back to the home page again, there's organization at the top. I can tag all the content so that, maybe hundreds or even thousands of pieces of content. I can have it be organized in whatever fashion makes sense. And there's also the ability to perform search. So, as I type here, you would see not only, you'd see just like Google, you basically are seeing recommendation based on what other people are searching for, as well as popular content. And this is all, of course, governed by a security model. So it's only showing me or recommending things that I actually have access to. And then if I hit return and I go to actually see the search results here, I can see everything that it was returned based on my search criteria, and across all of the different BI tools that are in the system, as well as metrics, native metric insights content, and also things that may not have even been brought into the portal. So, you can see there's some cases I might want to maybe put the most critical content in the portal, the things that are heavily used, but let people search to find those things that are more secondary in nature. They're just still sitting in your BI tools without having been promoted to the portal. Search allows you to do that as well. So that was the view from the admin perspective. Switching gears for a moment, let's look at kind of what an end user might see when they're looking at the portal. So here, this end user that's logged in, you can see their content is diminished. They're not seeing as much because the security model has constrained it to what they would normally see. There are announcements here at the top. So one of the things that you gain in putting a portal together is now you can communicate to your users. You can let them know that, hey, there's something wrong with your data loading in the warehouse today, or your Tableau environment is behind schedule, or alert them of business events. And that's important because what you don't want typically is users clicking on a dashboard and then looking at it and then letting you know that the data's stale, or finding that the thing hasn't been loaded in a week or something like that. So this allows you to be able to communicate with them proactively about any issues that are going on. And so in this particular case, this user's favorites selected. Here's the tiles that they would see. And if this particular user clicks on their Tableau dashboard, that same tile, they see a preview. But in this case, they're actually seeing the preview pre-filtered with their particular preset of filters. So every user can have their own bookmarks. They are either set individually or set by the administrator. So then they are seeing this image, controlled preset for their filters. And then when they go in, they click through, those filters are automatically pre-applied. And that's it might sound like a small thing, but it's actually quite a beneficiary and time saver for users, that rather than making them go in and then, in this dashboard, there's 4 or 5 different filters, having every single time they open a dashboard to set those filters, Metric Insights can, remember them for them and then automatically preset them as they go into it. So going back here, that you can see that in addition to the catalog view, there are other views, which is what we call portal pages, where you can do other things. So for example, discoverability of content. So here you're seeing new content that's available to the user. So one of the things, obviously, when you promote a new dashboard, you want to make sure users see it. And you'll notice here that some of these have little locks on them. What this is doing is showing you discoverability. So you can actually publish content to Metric Insights, and you can say these users, they can see it, can absolutely interact with it based on security model, but I want to make it available for users that cannot see it in this sort of locked way, where if they click on it, then they are able to then be told that they don't have access, but they can request access. And then it goes through an access request process where perhaps then they're granted access. So it allows for this third tier of content, which is discoverable content, to be consumed within your portal and gets broader adoption for content. Okay, and then let's see, so moving right along, there's now, going back to the portal for a moment, here's another example of a portal page. You can combine operational metrics together, just show your users the high-level numbers. If they click on anything from here, they can go directly into the particular visualization and see more details. So you can provide users a very concise top-down view into their metrics. You can also create mashups where you're combining lots of different visualizations across the enterprise together. And so there are various ways that this information can be combined. You can really think of this as, everything you've published in Metric Insights is a Lego block, and you can really combine these Lego blocks in lots of interesting ways and mashups within your system. And then finally, Ken mentioned the sort of the bursts and distribution. I want to show you what one of these would look like. This is an example of a burst. You might get the metrics, and you would scroll down lower, you would actually see all the different visualizations that were included in the distribution. So one email contains all of your analytics. You don't need to remember the subscription mechanism for every single one of your BI tools. Receive dozens of emails if you're interested in lots of content. You get a single email with all the content preset, either because you yourself subscribe to it, or if a administrator or power user has designated a burst for you. So the idea being, there's these set of KPIs, set of dashboards that you want to distribute to your senior management or to a particular group. An administrator can go in, identify what that content is, set up the distribution list, and then automatically have that content go to those users without them having to do anything. If they then click on a visualization within that email, they're automatically taken to the portal where they can interact with that visualization in real time. So, and this is sort of an example of where someone might set up the burst schedule. Here I've set up what is the content that I want to send, as well as I can indicate subscriptions, who should be subscribed. I can identify and send it to email or FTP or Slack or Google Teams or any place that the users might be consuming this content. And then here's an example of an alert email. So I mentioned earlier on about being able to make sure that you're receiving content only when exception occurs. So here's an example of a situation where the Tableau dashboard was sent to you because an alert condition was fired. In this particular case, a metric went 15% over the threshold that was set. And then very quickly, because I know we want to get into the Q&A, there's also the ability to do usage stats. That's very important. All of us are being asked to do more with less. So being able to really manage your resources, make sure that they're focusing on the visualizations and the areas where you're getting most utilization is very important. So being able to know what content is most popular, what's decreasing or increasing in popularity, and then understanding over time how that content is being used and as being consumed is very important. So the idea is that you can see, the consumption patterns over time, either user-centric, where you see how a user consumes content in a time-lapse fashion, or system-centric, where you pick a particular piece of content and you see what users are utilizing that. And then finally, one of the major things that I think all of us are being asked today. I think no matter where you are, what organization, budgets are tight, and you have to justify utilization of resources. One of the things that a portal enables you to do is to be able to make content available in that discoverable fashion, make content fully available to users, but then switch them to a discoverable view if, in fact, they're inactive for very long periods of time. So you can get very efficient in your usage of license usage. Understand, who's using the licenses, and then if they're not inactive for 3 months, 6 months, rather than continuing to pay for that license, you can actually switch them, switch that license off, and then have them be able to re-provision that license dynamically through the portal when it's required. So that's a way that you can really, oftentimes, save maybe the entire cost and more of a BI portal, simply by being really much smarter and more effective in the way that you use your software licenses for your BI tools. So with that said, just to summarize, and then we'll get to Q&A, there are three things that we're fundamentally doing: consolidating all the content in a single place, so you have those tiles. We're providing the ability to generate alerting and exception management, so you can push out content to users when there's something significant in the data, when anomalies take place, and then you can enrich and distribute that content users so that they can consume it even without going to portal. And you're doing that in a way that is increasing user adoption, keeping track of usage, and being much more efficient in the way that you're using the expensive resources of your BI infrastructure that you have today. So with that, let's open it up, I guess, to Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Marius and Ken. And we've had a load of questions from our audience, so let's jump into these. So you mentioned Gold Star certified reports, but in your demo, the stars seem to just represent favorites. Can you please clarify?
So Ken was requiring Gold Star certified, but actually in the demo, the certification is a little check mark. It's a little green icon that shows that it's certified. And if you mouse over it, you can see who certified that content and when it was certified. So we'll say, Ken certified this on this particular date. So there's not only the knowledge that the certification that's been certified, but there's the information about, how did that certification come about? And with some customers, there's a whole process for certification that has to take place. It has to be vetted and approved, and there can be multiple stages to the certification. So it can be as simple as somebody who's an owner of that content clicking and saying, yes, this is certified, to as complex to having multiple gates that a particular piece of content must pass through before it can be marked as certified.
Fantastic. Awesome. So moving on to another question. We've had so many come in. It's fantastic. Thank you so much, guys, for sending these in. How long in general does it take for an underlying report to achieve? Oh, yeah, you've kind of answered that in the last one, so I'm going to move along. How do you manage security and keeping it updated for the active users? Is this managed by an IT department?
So that's a great question. And the way that it works is that what you saw there is synced up with LDAP and Active Directory, and also with SAML. So typically we integrate in such a way that all the groups, you're usually using LDAP or AD groups to be able to manage your BI tool access. Those groups will flow into Metric Insights, and thereby when a user logs in, they're only seeing the content that they're supposed to see as inherited through that group. So, and then when they click through to go to that particular tool to work with, when you saw it in the iframe, then that access is managed by that tool directly, again, through your integration through LDAP Active Directory. So in doing so, there is not an extra step that the IT needs to do to continuously manage access. You just set it up once to make sure all the groups line up, and then from then on, it will just automatically sync up and work.
Brilliant. Okay. So one that's come through here says, doesn't this presume that all the various reporting tools are using correct and up-to-date data, and those underlying reports are correct?
Yeah, so that's a great point, and I didn't say that, and I think it's the questioner is pointing the finger right on it. You would not normally go ahead and pull in all of your BI assets in your enterprise into a portal. That's not a good idea, because all you're doing there is you're taking the mess that's out there and you're collecting it into an even bigger mess that's going to be in the BI portal. What you're going to do is you're going to go through a process by looking at those usage statistics, and you're going to onboard the content that is actively used. You're going to identify things that potentially certified content is going to go in first. So there's a very methodical process by which you do that to make sure that the things that you onboard initially the content are all coherent and will provide the user a great experience. And then all of the other content is still available to users. They can search, like I showed you before. They can maybe discover it and get to it. But the things that are front and center, files that are there, they're the things that that as an organization you are accurate, are consistent, and you want your users to be able to interact.
Brilliant. Okay. Now, we've had several ways of phrasing this question. Oh, sorry, Ken, were you jumping in there?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the way that we handled that was we purposefully created basically a team structure. So we broke our organization down into the business process areas with finance, sales, operations, and so on. So we had the major business domains, and then we have a team folder underneath those within Metric Insight. And we're just allowing the teams to upload and link to their existing Excel files. But we're separating those from the certified reports, right? And at least what this does is because it provides that single place for folks to begin to go to, and then it also provides us the ability to see, well, what are they actually clicking on? What Excel files are they using more than others? And now how can we help migrate those out of their current environment into, we've selected Power BI as a reporting tool. How do we move them into Power BI and then up into a certified report within Metric Insight? So we actually are encouraging kind of that mess to come into one location, but we're separating it out in Metric Insight folders.
Brilliant, and that goes on to answer the question I was just about to pose, because it was submitted several times in lots of different ways. So I apologise if I don't ask it in the way that you sent it in. But essentially, a lot of people were asking, how does this portal connect to different tool portals? So Power BI was mentioned, Tableau, Click, and kind of what is the technology used to enable it? So I don't know if either of you want to expand on specifically that.
I'll speak on the technology part of it. So we basically partner up with all of the BI tool vendors, and we work with published APIs for those technologies, and oftentimes partner with the vendor to figure out what's the optimal way to do that, and then use that to be able to pull images and data. So there's a whole event model behind the scenes that can be integrated with the actual updating of those tools. So that you can imagine, let's say once your Tableau or Power BI updates finish, you initiate a call to Metric Insights, and then through your little batch job that you run, and then Metric Insights will go off, and then we'll collect all the images for that. If there's any data that we need for KPIs, using the APIs for those tools, we'll collect the data, and then we'll handle all the distribution. And there's lots of dials and knobs you can set around that integration, but fundamentally that's how it works.
Wonderful. Brilliant. I'm loving these questions. They're probably quite challenging to answer. This one's just come in now. Which characteristics of an underlying BI poses the most challenge to this dashboard aggregator?
Which characteristics of an underlying BI? Well, I mean, we're not, your experience of using the content is the same, because we're not trying to reproduce the way that the interactivity within your BI tool. Your BI tool is iframed into Metric Insights, or you link outside of it from the portal, and you're consuming it the same way that you normally would. The thing that we're doing, we're adding, if you think of it, we're enriching that by basically saying, well, 99 times out of 100, maybe I, as a casual business user, don't need to look at that particular dashboard. And if in the times that I do want to look at it, I probably want to come in and have an idea of which combination of filter values I should be checking out to make sure that it's useful. And so Metric Insights kind of sits as a layer above that to enrich and provide that. So pushing it out to you when there's an exception, allowing you to access it with bookmarks. So increasing your efficiency around which you work with the BI tool. We're not replacing the need for the BI tool at all.
Yeah, and I can say that we haven't found any limitations in our ability to connect to those underlying platforms. It's just passed through an iframe, and it's been pretty seamless from our perspective. And maybe related to the last two questions, one of the things that we're doing now is we're repurposing the Power BI environment to be more of a staging environment. So all of our Power users are building their Power BI reports, but then we're exposing them through Metric Insight. And we're trying to reduce the number of direct users to the Power BI platform itself, and they're going to get their reports through Metric Insight. Now, the Power users and Power analysts are still in that environment, but for the business users in the organization, we're just redirecting them to, because there's so much noise in those underlying environments, and this gives us much better control.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Well, Ken, just to echo that, you want to do that. You want to give your direct BI tool access to your analysts who are going to be living in those tools or taking advantage of it. But use a portal to provide the entry point for everyone else, for the folks that are just casual to the information, because it's a much better experience for them.
Brilliant. So I'm conscious of the time, so we'll go for one more. And I'm sorry if we haven't had a chance to answer yours live on air. So let's go for, would Metric Insights recognize the inconsistencies between dashboards if there were any? Say some similar or same KPIs is not represented with the same interpretation or values between two dashboards.
So we wouldn't necessarily know that the definition of something within a dashboard, one dashboard versus the other, is different. The metadata integration we have is to the data, right? So we provide an API where we'll pull the data. We know the columns in the dashboard, so we can tell you that these particular dashboards maybe have the same columns. But I think the way that from a data quality perspective that some of our customers use the integration is more to say, I've got these two dashboards. There maybe they're both necessary, similarity, but they're different. And so therefore, I want to make sure that the numbers tie from the two. And so you can build, like I showed you those alerts earlier on, you can build an alert that will compare the value from the two dashboards every day. And if there's a point in time when they're different, it will notify someone. So that way you know that you're not kind of going up, total sales here and total sales there are always the same, or that this dashboard matches a number in your data warehouse. So those you do, it's more of a functional type of analysis rather than a metadata definition type of.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Sadly, that is all we have time for on the first session. Thank you so much for submitting your questions. They have been fantastic. Those that didn't get answered, what we will do is we will pass them forward to both Marius and Ken, and hopefully they will take some time out to answer them over email and phone, so you will get your answers. So moving swiftly on to